So I'll ask you to take your seats so that we can begin our next session. So for those who don't know me, my name is Bruce Cadden, Rabbi Emeritus of Temple Bethel in Tacoma and Senior Lecturer in Religion and Holocaust and Genocide Studies here at Pacific Lutheran University, and I'm filling in for my colleague Rana Kaufman. I think if there is one thing that many people knew about the Holocaust in Latin America, at least before this conference, it was that it was a place for refuge for a number of Nazis who escaped there and lived freely. And this session explores Nazis hiding with two virtual presentations followed by questions and answers. And I'll introduce each speaker before their presentation. We'll first hear from Daniel Stahl, a researcher at the Friedrich Alexander Universität Erlangen-Nuremberg. Dr. Stahl specializes in the history of human rights, the transnationalization of law, and Latin America-European relations. He's published books at the Hunt for Nazis in South America and the history of the arms trade. And this morning he will be speaking on What is Taking You So Long? Holocaust Survivors and the Search for Nazis in South America. Dr. Stahl.
No. Yes, thank you for the invitation, for having me, and I would have been interested in attending the whole conference. There are a lot of interesting topics, but unfortunately, because of the time difference and so on, it hasn't been possible. So yes, my topic today is what took you so long? And this is a quote from Josef Schwamberger. Perhaps I should ask, why does it, no, yeah. From Josef Schwamberger, you see him here on the photo, this old man, a Nazi criminal who escaped to Argentina. Born in 1912, he joined the SS in 1933, and after the occupation of Poland, he was deployed in the general government. Starting in 1941, he was in charge of different ghettos and camps. He was feared by the inmates for his cruelty. After the war, he fled to Argentina, where he was arrested in 1987 and extradited to Germany, where he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1992. According to a police officer, the 75-year-old fugitive Nazi asked, when arrested in a small village in the northern part of Argentina, "What took you so long?" In my presentation today, I will explain why it took the authorities so long to arrest Schwamberger. But while I was preparing this talk, I decided to extend the topic of my presentation a little bit. I will not only ask about the role of Holocaust survivors in the search for Schwamberger, but I would also like to examine the consequences of this search taking so long. I will use the case of Josef Schwamberger to make some more general claims about the history, and I would like to analyze three linkages between the history of Latin America and the history of the Holocaust that emerged in the search for Nazis. So first, I will look at the role of Holocaust survivors in the search for Nazi criminals who escaped to South America. Second, I will analyze how the efforts to put Nazi criminals on trial became intertwined with the way Argentinian society dealt with its own violent past. And finally, I will argue that these efforts shaped the search of Holocaust memory in Argentina. Schwamberger's escape to Argentina in 1949 was arranged by Carlos Fuldner. You can see him here on the slide on the left. And Fulner had been commissioned by Juan Domingo Perón, the Argentinian president, to arrange the immigration of Germans to Argentina after World War II. Some historians explain the institutional support provided by the Argentinian government to Nazis on the run as a part of their policies to profit from the so-called German brain drain. That is the exodus of technologically skilled workers and experts. However, I would emphasize that ideological reasons played an important role. This is not to say that Perón's government pursued a fascist agenda comparable to National Socialism or Italian fascism, although there were some ideological overlaps. Yet my main point would be that Perón saw Nazis as allies in an international struggle against both liberal capitalism and communism. And this is why I also brought you this photo of Juan Domingo Perón. This is not from the 40s, this is in 74, but you see him here with Hans-Ulrich Rudel, who was a Stuka pilot during World War II. And after World War II, he became a Nazi politician in the West German, in the Federal Republic. And he was a close friend to Perón. And again, I would emphasize this is not only because Perón liked Germans, but there were some ideological reasons for him. During his first years in Argentina, Schwamberger was safe. The criminal prosecution of Nazi crimes almost came to a halt during the 1950s. There were no investigations by German authorities into crimes committed by Schwamberger. Things started to change slowly at the end of the 1950s, when due to international pressure, West German prosecutors began to investigate systematically Nazi crimes. In January 1960, a Holocaust survivor filed a lawsuit against Schwamberger, and only 6 months later, German authorities had gathered reliable information that he had escaped to Argentina. But only 2 years later, the prosecutor contacted the German embassy in Buenos Aires. However, Ambassador Juncker explained that Schwamberger was working for Siemens and that he was too important for the company to be extradited. And he also formulated some doubts that Argentina would be willing to extradite Schwamberger. So afterwards, after this information from the German embassy, the prosecutor in Stuttgart did not continue his efforts to have Schwamberger extradited. It was Simon Wiesenthal, a Holocaust survivor. You can see him here on the photo on the right, where he is sitting in his office checking his cards, his information system. And yeah, it was Simon Wiesenthal who was living in Vienna, who got things moving again in '72. Wiesenthal had acquired some fame after contributing in 1967 decisively to the extradition from Brazil of Franz Stangl, the former commandant of the Nazi extermination camps Sobibor and Treblinka. Wiesenthal had heard rumors in '63 that Schwamberger was staying in Argentina. In '71, he received from an unknown source a specific address in La Plata, Argentina. Immediately, he contacted José Moscovitz, the president of Xerit HaPlaita in Buenos Aires, the Argentine Association of Jewish Survivors of the Nazi Persecution. And you can see here José Moscovitz in '68, so just a few years earlier, during the inauguration of his Estudio Moscovitz. So José Moscovitz was also a Holocaust survivor from Hungary, And he was a lawyer and supported Jews living in Argentina to get their Wiedergutmachung from Germany. So Moskowitz managed to verify Wiesenthal's information and confirmed that Schwamberger was living under his own name. Wiesenthal passed this information to the German prosecutor. Finally, in 1973, the Foreign Office submitted an extradition request. However, Schwamberger was warned by the Argentinian police and went underground. The Schwamberger case so far is paradigmatic in many respects. West German investigators were often able to quickly locate wanted Nazi criminals in South America. It was not so hard for them to figure out where they were staying. And I have seen a lot of files, and it's always the same pattern with a few exceptions, that as soon as they started to look for someone, they quickly could verify their stay in South America. However, in most cases, this did not lead to an extradition request. German jurisdiction had created many obstacles that stood in the way of proceedings against Nazi perpetrators. Many of the old elite, like the Ambassador Juncker, were still in key positions and used their influence to protect Nazi criminals. In many cases, German authorities were unwilling to pursue costly extradition proceedings given the low chances of success in court. In light of such resistance, it were often transnational networks of Holocaust survivors that independently determined the whereabouts of perpetrators and exerted pressure on the authorities. After the failed extradition request, Schwamberger lived for almost 15 years undisturbed in Argentina. Eventually, in 1987, the German embassy received information about Schwamberger's address. The Foreign Office submitted an extradition request, and Schwamberger was arrested in 1987. And 1987 was a pivotal year in terms of how Argentinian society dealt with its own violent past. The military junta, in power between 1976 and 1983, had killed more than 30,000 people and tortured many more. After the return to democracy, a trial was held in 1985 against some of the high-ranking militaries. However, 86 and 87, so this is exactly the time when Schwamberger was arrested, the government passed two laws in order to bring to an end the prosecution of junta's crimes. Leopoldo Schifrin was one of the judges in charge of the extradition request against Schwamberger. You see Leopoldo Schifrin here on the left. He opposed the amnesty laws, and he cooperated closely with Argentinian human rights organizations who tried to undo the impunity of crimes committed by the junta. Schifrin saw the extradition request as an opportunity to connect the case against a Nazi who had committed his crimes decades ago with the prosecution of the crimes of the junta. In his decision about the extradition request, he had to deal with the question whether Argentinian statutory limitations apply to Schwamberger's crimes. In this case, it would have been impossible to extradite him. Schifrin rested his decision to extradite Schwamberger on the argument that Argentina had to respect international law. He went on explaining that according to international law, statutory limitations could not be applied to crimes against humanity. This argument had implications for the amnesty laws that just had been passed. If statutory limitations could not be applied to crimes against humanity, then the amnesty laws had to be interpreted as a violation of international law. Schifrin succeeded in his attempt to connect the extradition request with the fight against the Argentinian amnesty laws. During the following years, his decision became one element on which human rights lawyers relied to prove that the Argentinian amnesty laws were unconstitutional. Up until today, the Schwamberger case is mentioned in rulings against the perpetrators of the military junta. And this is the second photo that I brought you. It's a legal document from 2009 concerning the crimes of the military junta. And you can see here in the red, where that this text refers to Juez Schifrin and the Causa Schwamberger. And you could find hundreds of documents from 2000 on and the following years, the last 20 years, that make mention of this extradition decision made by Schwamberger. The efforts to prosecute those responsible for the Holocaust influenced the way Argentinian society confronted its own violent past. In a last step, I argue that Schwamberger's case contributed to the development of an official, institutionalized Holocaust memory in Argentina. In the course of the extradition proceedings against Schwamberger, elections were held in Argentina, resulting in the election of the Peronist candidate Carlos Menem as president. The election of a Peronist triggered debates in the US and Argentina about the role of Perón in helping the Nazis to escape. During the following years, a key concern for the Menem administration was to demonstrate that the party, the Peronist party, could engage with its past critically and distance itself from its past mistakes. In a meeting of Menem with Jewish organizations in New York, shortly after the extradition of Schwamberger in 1991, the Argentinian president announced that he would release all files about Nazi criminals in Argentina. I have brought you here a photo of this archive that was developed subsequently, and these are the files that now are at the DAIA, the Delegación de Asociaciones Israelitas Argentinas. So, however, even with this opening of the archives, the debate did not go away. In 1995, Nazi criminal Erich Priebke was arrested in Bariloche, another Nazi. While the Argentinian society discussed and kept on discussing the role of Perón had played in helping Nazis escape to Argentina, debates about the Holocaust became more and more important in Europe and the US. Daniel Levy and Nathan Snyder described this process as a cosmopolitanization of Holocaust memory. One of the central themes of debates about the Holocaust in the 1990s was the question of the responsibility of non-German societies. For example, why didn't the government in Washington allow more Jews to escape to the US? Or why didn't the Air Force bomb the railroad tracks leading to Auschwitz? So it was this international context that gave the Argentinian debate resonance in Europe and the US. Menem's government reacted with a series of further measures, funding research projects about the escape of Nazis to Argentina and the fate of Jewish Holocaust victims, establishing a commission in 1997 to investigate the escape of Nazis, and finally financing the establishment of the Holocaust Museum in Buenos Aires in 1999. You see it here on the right. So to sum up, the search for Nazis in South America created several entanglements between Holocaust and Latin America. The search for Nazis was an area in which Holocaust survivors played a relevant role in overcoming the reluctance of West German authorities to prosecute Nazi crimes. The search for Nazis had an impact on how South American societies dealt with their own violent past, and it contributed to the establishment of an institutionalized Holocaust memory. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Stahl. Our second speaker is Avner Avraham, a former Mossad lieutenant colonel and Israeli police officer and deputy editor of Israel Intelligence Heritage Center magazine, as well as a lecturer, film producer, and exhibition curator. He's most famous as an expert on Mossad operations, and he worked to reveal and publicize the inside story of the historic 1960 capture of Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann. And this morning he will speak to us on the real story behind the capture of Eichmann and new discoveries.
Can you see me?
Yes, I hear you too.
Okay, I don't see myself. I see the presentation only. Also, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. And it was 15 years ago when we decided to make in the Mossad headquarters exhibition about the capture of Eichmann, the true story behind the capture. And I'm going to tell you today, in my 20 minutes, some new details about this, also about Mengele and how we missed Mengele. I also want to tell you that I'm producing spy exhibitions. And when we are talking about Never Again and talking about Holocaust, we must find a way to talk with the new generation. And with the new generation, with the students, with the young students, I found that they are very interesting hearing spy stories. So what I'm doing in my operation lectures and films and exhibitions, I'm talking about spy, how the Mossad captured Eichmann, and then we are talking about the trial. This operation was important because the trial. We couldn't make the trial without capturing Eichmann and smuggling him to Israel. And there is a film on Netflix. You should see it today or tomorrow, Operation Finale, the capture of Eichmann. It's a feature film, but you can see I was in Argentina as a consultant in the film. And by the way, I'm the curator that made the permanent exhibition of Operation Finale in the Holocaust Museum in Buenos Aires. Eichmann escaped on 1950 from Italy to Buenos Aires, and he came to the north of Argentina at the beginning. And after 2 years, he asked his wife and 3 kids to come. And since he came with the fake name, Ricardo Clement, the family that came, the wife and 3 kids, they came with the real names, and they used the name Eichmann. And this lovely young girl, Sylvia Herrmann, she lived with her family in Buenos Aires and in a Christian family, and German Christian family. And she went to a German film festival in this cinema. This cinema is in New York. You can see me in the left side. It still exists. And we shot the scene, the first scene in the film, in this cinema. And she met Klaus Eichmann, and she fell in love. And he told her, I'm Klaus Eichmann. And she didn't know what it meant, Eichmann. But of course, you understand that it's Eichmann's son using the name Eichmann. And you can see this is a special spy picture because In the right side, you can see a Mossad suitcase with a small hole and a Leica camera inside. And think about the young generation and to tell them that we needed a camera with a negative and then we needed to develop the pictures and it takes time. It's not like today. When Klaus came to visit his new girlfriend, he found the father, Lothar Hermann. But he didn't know that Lothar Hermann is a half Jewish and half Christian, and he also Holocaust survivor from Dachau, near Munich. And he spoke against the Jews and he said, why didn't we kill the all 11 millions that we planned to kill? And Lothar Hermann decided to send this information to the famous prosecutor in Frankfurt, Dr. Fritz Bauer. There's also a few films about his story. He was a Jewish Holocaust survivor. Think about it. In the 50s, that trying to find Nazis. And Fritz Bauer, at the beginning, he didn't send this information to the Mossad because when you have the first information, you have to check it. So it took a few months to check the information. And then he decided to send this information to the Mossad. And the Mossad at the beginning checked this information, but it wasn't a serious way to check it. And only after 2 years, when Fritz Bauer came to Israel, and he brought with him a picture of Eichmann from Argentina, and also the fake name Ricardo Clement. He also went to the German archives and he brought 2 big files from the archive. The Nazi officer file of Adolf Eichmann. And in this slide, you can see a Holocaust survivor that was born in Berlin, Micha Maor. He was a Mossad agent based in Cologne. Now think about a Holocaust survivor that became professional photographer, and he entered by midnight to Fritz Bauer office, and he made a copy of all the documents from the files, and it was a huge help to the capture of Eichmann and also to the trial. Here, for example, you can see the first page from the SS officer file. You can see the picture of Eichmann. You can see the left ear. It's important. I will explain why. You can see that 45326 is his SS number. And of course, we could find in this file details about the kids, the family. Eichmann's anniversary day was March 21st, for example. And if you follow someone in a bus station or a train station and you see someone with flowers, you know that maybe he's going to celebrate something. And if you're doing this on March 21, maybe this is Eichmann. Okay, it's all about small details. Now think about Zvi Aharoni, the first Mossad agent coming on 1960 to Argentina with his Leica camera. He made few pictures of Eichmann outside his house, and now he needs to develop the picture. So he went to a small photo shop in Olivos. It's a neighborhood in Buenos Aires, and he asked the lady to develop the picture. He gave her twice money. And after Prime Minister Ben-Gurion made his announcement that Eichmann is in Israel, she needed to escape. The head of the Jewish community in Argentina and the people from the embassy told her, the Nazi in Argentina know about you. They know that you took part and you developed the picture, and now you have to escape. Now think about the fact that a few years ago, I was in Argentina and I met her I was in Miami and I met her in my exhibition in Miami, and she told me, I'm the owner of the shop and I needed to escape from Argentina. I escaped to Israel and then I decided to move to Miami. This is the house not in Garibaldi Street in Chacabuco. Eichmann escaped on March 26 from this house to Garibaldi Street. You can see here the real map from the operation. By the way, in my exhibition, now my exhibition is near Berlin in Potsdam, but it was 8 months in Munich, and before it in 8 different museums in the United States, including the World War II Museum in New Orleans, the Jewish Heritage Museum in New York, Holocaust Museum in Skokie, and Detroit, and Houston, and other places. So this is the real map, and you can see Garibaldi Street in the middle, in the center of the picture. And this is the house, isolated house. It was the first time that Eichmann bought for himself a piece of land and a small house, 2 rooms for Eichmann, his wife, and 4 kids. This is the house. And here you can see a special protocol from the Israeli police laboratories that compare the shape of the left ear from the SS file that our agent took from Bauer, and the big white picture is from the Mossad that they took it on April 1960. 1 month before the capture, and they compared and they found out that this is the same person. And here we have 11 agents, 10 men, 1 woman coming to Argentina to the capture of Eichmann. You send a team, and here you can see the story of the Jewish people. Look how they look different. They grew up in different places. They have second language from home. Someone from Hungary, someone from Germany, from Austria, from Switzerland. Someone grew up in Israel. Someone else came from Romania. And the Mossad needed to, first of all, send them in a separate days, different airlines, and to match between the fake passports and the destinations. This is the real flight tickets from the operation. Again, think about your kids, grandson, granddaughters, show them these flight tickets. They don't understand what does it mean as flight tickets, and think about exhibit that shows the real objects from the operation. When we shot the scene, for the director, it was enough to show that all of them came together with Air France, and I insisted to change everything. I told him this is the story of the Jewish people. We came from different places. We don't come, and also if you do a spy film, you have to show all the small details. This is a rare picture of one of the agents landing in Argentina to the capture. A special machine, handmade by Mossad, that can produce keys for Eichmann's house. And the bus station, this is the bus station. I made this picture a few years ago in Argentina. You can see 203. This is a number, and this bus still exists in Argentina, goes to San Fernando. I got this picture from someone that made Aliyah and came to Israel and told me that his father gave his car to the operation. I can tell you that the Jewish community helped, but it was at the beginning only, because when you come and you want to spy after Eichmann's house, you cannot come every day with the same car, with the same people. So they needed more than 20 different cars. So they took cars from people from the Jewish community, and it was a cover story like a cousin that came for vacation and things like this. The Mossad found out that Eichmann got a routine, and he's coming every day, 7:30 p.m. He works for Mercedes, and they decided to wait for him with two cars near the bus station. They captured him on May 11, 1960. They took him to the safe house. They undressed him and asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, Ricardo Clement. And they asked him, and what was your name before? And he said, Otto Eichmann. And they didn't know that he used this name when the US Army captured him in Europe. And the mission is not to bring Nazi to Israel. The mission was to bring Eichmann to Israel because he was the architect of the Holocaust. He was in charge of the trains, of the schedule, of everything. And then they ask him, what is the color of your eyes? What is the color of your hair? And suddenly they ask him, what is your SS number? And he gave the real number. And he said, yes, I'm Adolf Eichmann. Can I have a glass of red wine? I was lucky to meet a few Mossad agents. Unfortunately, all of them passed away, but I got from them the true story. Think about Mossad organizing a dancing party in the same day, the same night of the capture, with all the military attachés, including the Israeli attaché. You can see here his wife dancing with a high-rank officer in the Argentinian army. It was the alibi for our military attaché in Argentina. And Argentina decided that only after the capture, only the ambassador will be persona non grata and need to leave. By the way, did you know that you can make a fake stamps in passports by using a potato? Just take a potato, half of it put on the stamp, and after a few seconds you will have a copy, and then you can make other copy in other passport. Something about Mengele, the Mossad knew that Mengele is renting rooms in different apartments. They decided that they will not do anything before Eichmann landing in Israel. 3 agents decided to stay in Argentina. And unfortunately, because of the Ben-Gurion, Prime Minister of Israel, announcement, he made his announcement too early that Eichmann is in Israel. He made this announcement in the parliament. Mengele disappeared. The second part of the operation was to smuggle Eichmann to Israel. At the beginning, they thought about ship, and then they came with the idea to use El Al plan. It was a fake premiere. The Mossad sponsored everything. And after 2 days, the Mossad bought all the tickets. They asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs to send a delegation to celebrate with the Argentinian 150 years anniversary. And this is a very nice spy story. You can see in the 2 pictures from the right side, it's the same Mossad agent with and without makeup. He dressed like a navigator. And he came to Argentina with a fake name, Zev Zichroni, and actually he was the double. Because when he landed, they took from him the uniform and the passports, they replaced the picture in the passport, and Eichmann came to Israel as a navigator. They took him to the airport as a sick crew member. This is the airport in Argentina, and this is a rare picture of Eichmann on the way to Israel. This is the real needle that they used to drag him when they took him to the airport. The announcement on May 23rd, 1960, that Eichmann is in Israel. In the right side, you can see Issa Harel, the chief of Mossad. And a year after the opening of the trial, Mickey Goldman is the only one that's still alive from the special 06 Bureau, a special unit that questioned Eichmann and prepare everything for the trial. And something about the film, this poster is from Tehran. I got it from Tehran. And think about people that watching Operation Finale because it's a Mossad film. But actually, when you see this film, you can learn about the Holocaust. Here we can see a true number of a Holocaust survivor from Hungary. And we use this number in the film. In this scene, we made this scene in Argentina, and the idea was that the waiter that's serving us is a Holocaust survivor, but he tried to hide it. And we found out the name. You can see in the middle, Oscar Isaac, the one that playing Peter Malkin. When he found out that this is a Holocaust survivor, the Holocaust survivor decided to cover the number and disappear. And by the way, in the right side, the soldier is the screenwriter, and the second from the right, it's me playing cameo. And last thing, this is a special medal that we produced. One of my companies produced this medal to commemorate the 60 years anniversary of the capture of Adolf Eichmann. And I'm also ready for Q&A.
We will open it now for a bit of Q&A. I'll start by asking you, Avner, so was there follow-up with trying to capture Mengele, or did the timing just sort of leave everything up in the air?
So first of all, I want to tell you that the Prime Minister Ben-Gurion is the boss of Mossad, and he didn't want that the Mossad will try to find and kill all the Nazis. For him, it was enough to find one Eichmann and to make one big trial in Jerusalem, and that's all. He didn't want to hang Nazis in Jerusalem. Now, in the story of Mengele, it was a private operation of chief of Mossad, because it doesn't make sense that Ben-Gurion making an announcement when 3 agents are far away from home with fake passports. It doesn't make sense. It shows you that the Mossad wanted to find Mengele and to kill him, and they couldn't, and they tried for 3 decades, but it was a failure, unfortunately.
Thanks. Do you have...
Thank you for your presentation. Question for Avner or for the other gentleman. I'm curious how much involvement or working together with the Simon Wiesenthal group, the Mossad, worked together to help either in Eichmann or other searches in Latin America.
Simon Wiesenthal was the #1 Nazi hunter ever. He helped the Mossad a lot, but I can tell you for sure that for the capture of Eichmann in 1960, his role was very, very small.
Yes, I would just add that the role of Wiesenthal was more important in other cases, so like Schwamberger, Kutschmann, or Franz Stangl. In these cases, Wiesenthal was a key person in getting the information, and also in not only getting the information, but also in putting up public pressure. So, yeah, but in the case of Eichmann, this was not the case.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes, I have a question about 2 people. First, what do we know about the assassination of Kukhorst in Buenos Aires? He was the deputy commander of the Arias Commando. And secondly, can anybody explain about Walter Rauff, who fled to Chile and then helped the Pinochet regime, and in a sense was a war criminal not just for the Nazis but for Pinochet, but never went to trial either in Chile or in Germany? How is it that he got away entirely, though being, in a sense, a double criminal?
I can answer the first question. It was in 1965 in Montevideo, and it was exactly 20 years after the end of the World War II, and the Germans planned to just to say that after 20 years, you will not charge anymore any Nazis. So the Mossad decided to do something and to open again the stories of the Holocaust and Nazis. And they decided to kill Turcos in Montevideo. By the way, they brought him from a different place, I think from Brazil. They didn't want to do it in Brazil. They brought him, they offered him a very good business offer that he couldn't refuse. And he came, and they killed him in a villa and disappeared. We also call him the hangman from Riga, because he was in charge of killing thousands of Jews in the same evening when he took them to the synagogues and put them together and opened fire in all the synagogues in the city. About the other one, the second question, I don't have any idea about the name.
Yeah, perhaps then I say something to the second case, to Walter Rauf. Yes, actually what you can see in the case of Walter Rauf is that many different authorities from different countries cooperated somehow, not cooperated, but it came out that together they protected him. So first it was when Rauf came to Chile, and German authorities again very quickly figured out where he was staying. So when they tried to file this extradition request, it was again the German ambassador in Santiago who tried to prevent Rauf from being extradited. But finally the pressure, this time, the pressure from the prosecutor was so high that finally the extradition proceeding started in the early 60s. And the Chilean court decided not to extradite Walter Rauf. And afterwards, when later public pressure became more and more, then Chile had this dictatorship, and it was mainly Pinochet who knew Walter Rauf and who protected him. And now we have this investigation by Philip Sands, who did a very good research, speaking with people who had been involved in the repression by the military junta of Pinochet, who could show that Walter Rauf indeed was involved in the repression of the military junta. For many years, we had some hints that there was something and that perhaps Walter Rauf was involved. But when I was writing my book, I still couldn't get any confirmed information. But now I'm pretty sure that what Philip Sands could figure out is reliable information that Walter Rauf was indeed involved in the repression by the Pinochet regime.
Thank you.
Hi. In the film, there was a good number of scenes in the safe house that you referred to, where there was interrogations of the character who played the actor Ben Kingsley, who was great in the movie. But were those actual representations of the way that he was interrogated, and what was the purpose of the interrogation if it were something that was actually based on fact?
Well, actually, it's a Hollywood film. I can tell you that the doctor that took part in the operation was a man. And in Hollywood, they decided that he should be a blonde actor that got a love affair with the Mossad agent. Now, think about the family. They don't talk with me anymore, the family of the doctor. And so there is some difference, of course, between the Hollywood film and the true story. For example, they are trying to run away to the airport and stop the plane before they're taking off. It's all bullshit. Okay. And also, it shows that it took them few days to make sure that Eichmann is signing the letter, but actually he signed the letter in the same evening because he thought that he will come to Israel and he will say, I was a small cog in the machine, I was a soldier, and following order, he will spend few years in the jail and then he will move back to Germany. It was his dream to move back to Germany. So of course there is many difference, but I can tell you, for example, that a few years ago the Mossad decided to share that his wife, Eichmann's wife, came to Israel and met him 2 months before the hanging. It's a true story, and we decided also to show it in the film. And I can tell you something that I'm very proud that I made. Ben Kingsley, there is a scene that Ben Kingsley is sitting in a palace in Budapest, in a fancy hotel, and he's holding a list of trains from this place to this destination and the number of Jews in every train, and it was all random and fake information. And I told the director, give me a few hours. I checked with the Yad Vashem websites, and after 4 hours, I came with the true list of trains between May and June 44. And it was so important. Think about the Holocaust deniers that can show and say, hey, there is no camp in this city. I'm sure you're going to watch the film today, huh?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Can I add something to the question regarding the interrogation of Eichmann? When I was investigating the sources on the kidnapping of Eichmann, I got the impression that making this trial was only one of the reasons why Eichmann was brought to Israel, but that actually what the Mossad and the Israel government were also thinking about him, that he still played a key role in an international network of Nazis that were still active on a global level. So I wanted to ask you if you could confirm this impression that I got by reading the files, or what is your interpretation? Was it only about the trial, or was it perhaps a little bit more about also the safety of Israel working against international Nazi networks?
Okay, so as I tell you, the whole story came from the love story from Sylvia Hermann to Eichmann's son. And as I told you, Ben-Gurion negotiated with the German government to get help and to get money to build my country. And he refused to spend money and to put people in risk by sending them to fight Nazis. He said to the chief of Mossad on 57, bring me one Nazi from one trial and that's all. And everything that the chief of Mossad made when he found out that Mengele is renting a room in a villa in Olivos, he decided to make a private operation. He decided that he will do it and smuggle both of them in the same plane. But the agents told him, you are crazy. The mission is to bring only one person. We need to smuggle Eichmann live to the airport, and we need to smuggle him to Israel. This is the main mission. That's why he decided to leave 3 agents in Argentina. I can tell you for sure that for David Ben-Gurion, that he got a huge vision. He said, if I want to build a country, I have to finish with only to write the book of the Nazis, to write the book of the Holocaust by making a huge trial, okay, a big trial. And by the way, in the trial, they spoke about everything. They took the map of Europe and shared it between 14 different officers, okay? And we were lucky enough to bring Eichmann because he got almost connection to most of the camps. I mean, think about smuggling Nazi from a small camp that he was a guard there, okay? So, but I can tell you, by the way, a funny thing. In Cologne, we didn't have embassy on 1960, but we got a delegation that negotiated with the Germans for getting all the help. And few people in this delegation were actually Mossad agents. One of them is Micha Maor. He was the one that made all the pictures. And he was there as a account manager, but he wasn't account manager. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to ask another question, if that's all right, which this follows right into. My question is, have you followed up with the next generation, the children, for example, of Eichmann, as you rightfully said, sounded like some of the hatred was passed generationally, and also their colleagues. I was wondering if you found that they associated with other Nazis or other people that obviously shared their points of view, even secretly, in Argentina or globally. And then secondly, I'm wondering, has there been any efforts towards restitution for those harmed and their families directly from some of the people that you're identifying here, that both were Eichmann and then the people who assisted in, trying to keep him from justice? Thank you.
Well, I met Ira Rosenbaum, the Nazi hunter in the state, wonderful man. And as far as I remember, he brought Demjanjuk to the trial in Israel and then in Germany. And if you ask about teaching the young generation, I'm lecturing in different schools in the state. By the way, sometimes Christian schools, and I'm talking with them about how it's to be spy, to live like an undercover, and then I'm talking and I'm building the operation with them. How can we get this Nazi? How many cars we need? How many agents we need? We need someone that can produce fake papers. We need someone strong to hold him. Why we need a doctor? So we built together the spy story, and I showed them the whole story. And then we get to the trial, and the Unit 06, the special bureau the mission was to find documents, pictures, and also to find Holocaust survivors that agreed to talk. Most of them didn't want to talk. They didn't want to talk. They didn't talk with the kids, with the second generation. Okay? And this is my way, and it works very well. By the way, think about Operation Finale. I asked the students to watch the film before. And then we are talking about the true story, and then we compare it to the film. And also I have a lot of pictures behind the scene, with the actors, and I have many stories, funny stories. And by the end of the day, you need to find a different way to talk about the Holocaust. And as you know, everybody, we are more than 2 years after the massacre on October 7. And believe me, as a journalist, I saw pictures that in some cases, it was worse than Nazis. Okay? But again, many people don't want to compare the Holocaust to the October 7. But I can tell you for sure, people don't wake up in the morning in the state and say, what a wonderful day, let's go to the Holocaust Museum with the kids, okay? You have to find a different way to tell this story. And this is my
May I-
mission.
Can I ask? The question was also about if the Nazi perpetrators passed their ideology to their kids. Is that right? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes, I'm wondering, we have now second, third generations, so you're talking about the children of victims and the children of aggressors. And I'm wondering if there's any effort to follow up if some of those actions have been transferred and how that would look in our present day. And then secondly, has there been any restitution from the families? So are they held accountable personally through whatever monies have been gifted or that they've managed to accumulate from these wrongdoings? By the way, thank you for that other answer. It's very important, I think, to understand how to educate and how to provide tools and skills that are practical. So thank you for that other answer as well.
I don't know what the current situation is between the children of Holocaust survivors and Nazi perpetrators in South America. But when you look a few years back, for example, when Erich Priebke was captured in Bariloche, this was still a time, it was in the 90s, and the school in Bariloche, the German school, was still full with Nazi ideology, and this is what they were teaching there. So at least the children, if not the grandchildren, from many of those people were still getting this ideology passed on in schools in South America. So this is what I can say. When it comes to reparation and if these families gave something of the money they had, there's nothing in that sense. Reparation was always from the German state to the Holocaust victims, and always very reluctantly. So if you look at the 1950s and 1960s, there were many Holocaust survivors in Buenos Aires and other South American cities that didn't get reparation by the German state because they would always come up with some arguments. Moskowitz, whom I showed you, he was involved in these proceedings, and for example, when a Holocaust survivor came and said, I still am hurt and I have these trauma from what happened, then the German embassy would take a German doctor who would say, no, this person is not really, there's nothing really about this trauma, so many people wouldn't get reparation afterwards. So yeah, but reparation did never involve private individuals, perpetrators.
Thank you both for.
Can I add, Rabbi? Can I add something?
Go ahead.
Eichmann got 3 kids when his wife came with the kids on 52. She came with the 3 kids, but he got another one that was born on 57, and he gave him half of the fake name and half of the real name, Ricardo Eichmann. And if you Google Ricardo Eichmann, he became a famous professor in Berlin. He is against Nazis. He's not in touch with his family. And guess what? He came to Israel, to Tel Aviv University for a conference. Do you believe this? Professor Eichmann, welcome to Tel Aviv.
Yeah, thank you both for really enlightening us. And the final session of our conference will start soon around the corner in CK. Lunch is there for those who ordered it. Thank you for staying with us all this time.